Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Old Geezer Show on, good heavens, something just pinged at me, on Saturday, the 4th of March, 2023. My name's Chris, and I run this little show. One of the things that constantly bugs me is digital exclusion. Oh, isn't that an awful word? Or an awful phrase. Digital exclusion means being really cut out of stuff and cut out of facilities and cut out of information because you are not digitally up to date. I'm very lucky, I'm still able to keep digitally up to date, but a lot of my cohort of people and younger people and people living in remote places are also having trouble keeping up to date with technology and keeping themselves in line with technology. So there you have it. It's an interesting one. Good morning, Algernon. And I want to talk about it a little bit today because something has come up that's really got to me. And the thing that's actually hit me in the face at the moment is about votes, elections, enfranchisement, which means essentially having the vote, and disenfranchisement, which means being cut out of the vote deliberately or accidentally. To be honest with you, it doesn't really matter much. Okay, so let's have a look at what I'm looking at, and let me give you this. I was in touch with, or I keep in touch with the National Pensioners Convention, which is a campaigning group. If you haven't heard from them, or if you haven't heard of them, then I've included a link in the comments, or I will include a link in the comments on this video. And they campaign on behalf of older people in the UK. And to be honest with you, they're okay at it, but I think they're a bit old-fashioned because they don't use things like video and stuff like that to keep in touch. I've offered to put their stuff on here, and I do publicise their information when I can. Okay, good morning, Alan. So what we're going to talk about is this thing which they've just put out, and it's about voter ID. And voter ID is where you have to have a form of photographic identification, like a bus pass, like a passport, like something like that, to actually get in and vote in a local or national election. And I think that's fairly dramatic thing to do, because what it means is that in this country at the moment we don't have a national ID card, and I'm not convinced that we really should have one, but that's a matter of opinion, isn't it? So what we're looking at is some form of visually demonstratively you, so a bus pass, a passport, some form of ID that contains a photograph of you, that the the election booth people can actually identify you from and say, yes, that is you. Okay. And what the NPC, the National Pensioners Convention, are saying is that this is actually going to start cutting people out of the right to vote. Let me read you a little bit of a letter that I'm also going to add on at the back end of the video. And what this says is this. It says some people will suffer from digital exclusion in the upcoming election, and some will have their right to vote undermined and in some cases removed completely. Excuse me. Let me give you the example that they give, the difficulties that older people and other people could face. An older person is living in a rural village. She has no passport. She has no driving license, and buses no longer run through the village because the company has withdrawn them and the council says it can't afford to subsidise them. So she doesn't have a bus pass either. She was told when she tried to inquire about this, she was told that she had to go online to get a free voting identification, but she can't afford a computer and the village has got no broadband. She was told to use the library, but the council has closed the library due to government funding cuts, and it has no computer anyway because there's no broadband in the village. this person cannot afford a taxi to town 15 miles away. Well, everybody's going to say, of course, that this person can have a postal vote, but that's avoiding the critical question, the NPC say, of the right of the individual to vote in person at a polling station. So this will not be the only case of exclusion, and not just those in the older generation. Younger people and others and families can suffer exclusion in much the same way. What they're saying is that there are lots and lots of ways for people like you and me, maybe, who can easily fall through the safety net and lose the right to vote. I'm bothered about this quite a lot, because even if it's a few hundred or a few thousand people, it means that the right to vote will be taken away by default from some people. What we need to do is give everybody a fair chance of voting. Now, one of the things you're going to say to me immediately is, well, there's postal votes, but the reality of a postal vote is, one, you have to be registered to vote already, but two, you should be able to go to your nearest polling station and vote on the day. I think you should. I think it's a right. And I think removing that right from people is, if you like, it's a reduction, if you like, in democracy. We're supposed to live in a democratic country, and I don't believe, if people are being cut out of the vote, I don't believe we are living in a democratic country. I believe that if you do not have the right to vote, you should not have the requirement to pay any taxes. You should get kind of a pro quid quo for your vote. If you don't vote, you're not classed by the government. The government is effectively cutting you out of the system. So they shouldn't take any money off you, I think, to be honest with you. But will that happen? No, it won't. And what will happen, I think, is that a large number of people won't get to vote in the coming elections. We've got local elections later in the year. We've got a national election, general election coming up in the next, I don't know, year, 18 months, whatever the hell, however long this government can survive. And if people don't have the right to vote in those elections, I think they're being mistreated, maltreated, call it what you like. And I think that's entirely and utterly wrong. That's a little rant from me this morning. I rarely do rants, but I do think this is pretty awful. I think it's actually disgusting beyond awful. And I think we ought to seriously raise our voices and say, let's have a shout about the right to vote. If people's right to vote is being taken away from them by default, if you like, by accident, then I think we need to have a serious look at the voting system, and we have to have a serious conversation with the Electoral Commission. There you go. I'm Chris. This is the Old Geezers Show. I'm having a moan today, and I'll see you, I hope, jolly soon. Okay, take care of yourselves and don't overdo things. I haven't done the show for ages, so of course everything goes a bit wrong. See you later.